All right, everybody, we're coming to you live right out here in Acres Home, baby. And what can I say? We're in Acres Home, better known as AKA Fofo, the Fofo. You know, now one thing about Acres Home now, Acres Home was the original black community. And it was, in fact, it was one of the largest black community in the United States. When people were buying property out here in Acres Home, it wasn't part of the Houston city limits. Acres Home didn't get annexed until 1967. Before 1967, Acres Home was not part of Houston. And HPD had no jurisdiction out here in Acres Home. But Harris County did. Anything that was done on the other side of Shepherd was considered as part of Houston Police Department. Anything outside of Shepherd, on the other side of Shepherd, like over here on West Montgomery where we at, this was considered as Harris County Deputy Department. And one thing about Acres Home, today they call it the Fofo. Our mayor is originally raised up out here in Fourth Ward. I mean, out here in Acres Home, y'all. See, because blacks was living out here in Acres Home way back in the day when they had the Emancipation Proclamation. Blacks could buy acres to build a home out here in Acres Home. That's where the name of Acres Home come from. It really was Airline, Texas. And this little village out here in Acres Home was considered a black community, and they didn't sell lots, they only sold acres. And acres was very, very cheap because they, remember, this was an untapped land out here. That means they didn't have no city water, they didn't have no lights. Everything they had to burn. If they wanted lights, they had kerosene lamps they had to use. And if they wanted water, they had wells that they had to use. They did not have running water out here. That belongs to the city. And they did not have any lights at one time belongs to the city until Houston Lighting and Power Company came out here and distributed lights, but they did not distribute no street lights. And everything on the other side of Shepherd was Houston. And on this side of Shepherd was Acres Home. And like I said, HPD had no jurisdiction over here. If anything would happen out here, it would have to go to Harris County Sheriff Department. And the Harris County Sheriff at that time is the longest sheriff that ever spent time in Harris County Sheriff Department, and that was Buster Kern. Buster Kern was elected in 1946, and he didn't retire. He really didn't retire. He got defeated by Jack Hurd in 1971. But for 23 years, Jack Hurd was up under Buster Kern. And Buster Kern was the sheriff out here. And one thing about this out here in Acres Home, a lot of people don't know that this is where Marvin Zindler got his start at, working for the Harris County Deputy Department. He was a deputy before he got on television. And one thing about Marvin Zindler, he was well recognized by Buster Kern. Buster Kern trusted Marvin Zindler. And like I said, Harris County Sheriff Department ran things out here in Acres Home. HPD didn't run nothing out here in Acres Home. In fact, HPD, they was out of their jurisdiction if they went past Shepherd. If they had a problem, they had to call Red Williams and Black Tyler. They was the black deputies out here in Acres Home. And trust me, they told it a mean stick. You did not want to cross Red Williams and Black Tyler. You might as well fight Stringfellow and Stalky Gray, because that's how bad they was out here. And they didn't take no mess. And up and down West Montgomery was nothing but beer joints, cafes, restaurants, and places to eat, and places to shop, and also places for doctors, and even lawyers even had their offices on West Montgomery. And one thing, like I say, they call it the Fofo. The only thing I can recognize the fofo for, because out here in Acres Home, they did not have city buses. They had their own bus company out here. And their own bus company was the only black-owned bus company in the whole South, y'all. And they had a bus station for you to catch the bus. And they had 3, 4, 5 cab companies out here taking people to the bus stop. And the bus would go from out here in Acres Home all the way through downtown, and it would come down Marlin, and when it gets to Bell, it would make a U-turn and come down Travis. And one thing about the bus, Houston transit system at that time was Rapid Transit. They honored all the transfers that come from the Pioneer Bus Company and also the Acres Home Bus Company. If you get a transfer, you can use it to go anywhere in Houston and catch a Rapid Transit bus. They did have transfers. And if you wanted to go to Houston, if you wanted to go out there on the north side towards City Gas, which was the Pioneer bus, they also honored those transfers that coming from this bus company, this black-owned bus company out here in Acres Home. And when Acres Home got annexed in Houston in 1967, the bus company eventually, they no longer needed that service no more, because Houston now is providing them with water, also their trash. And by the way, the trash company didn't come out here. They didn't have no Houston benefits at all. If you had trash, most of the trash you had to burn yourself or haul it away after you get through burning it. And one thing, like I said, they didn't even have lights out here. And this was what they raised. A lot of people raised their own farm, their own cattle and hog and pigs out here in Acres Home. They even had a bunch of chicken coops out here in Acres Home. Acres Home did not need Houston for a doggone thing, y'all. I'm being straight up with you. That's how independent these people out here in Acres Home was. And like I say, when they also had Harris County Deputy Department, when Buster Kern got sick, he stayed in office for 23 years, and about his last 2 or 3 years, he got real sick. And he did not trust Jack Hurd. He trusted Marvin Zindler. And one reason why he trusted Marvin, because number one, he hired Marvin to get into law enforcement. And when Marvin was hired, he was hired as a deputy, and Buster Kern immediately moved him up until the head of Harris County Fraud Division. In case you didn't know that. Some of you people that work at Channel 13, in case you didn't know. And Marvin ran this Acres Home area. Him and Red Williams and Black Tyler, any crime happened in Acres Home, trust me, it got solved. Very seldom you seen people in Acres Home killing each other. They had fights, yes, but as far as cutting up and killing each other, no. And one thing about out here in Acres Home, they call it the fofo. And the only reason why I can think of they call it the fofo, because the 44 city bus, which eventually started coming to Acres Home, and that was the name of it, the 44. The original name of the bus was called the 44 Studewood. And before Houston annexed Acres Home, the 44 bus used to drop the people off at Booker T. Washington on 39th, and on 43 and a half, they made a U-turn and go right back down North Main, all the way back to downtown, and use most of the same route that the Acres Home bus used. And then when it got to Marlin, it went down Marlin, and then when it made a U-turn at Bell and came back on Bell, and picked up, made a U-turn on Bell and came back down Travis. I could always remember, because it was always a whole bunch of people there in the back of Foley's, and they was catching 2 buses. More than likely, it was the Acres Home bus, which was an independent black-owned bus company, and it was also the 44 Studewood bus that went through the Heights, and also went to Studewood and Independent Heights. And when Houston expanded the service for the 44 Studewood bus, no longer went to 43rd and a half. They extended it all the way out so it could run through Acres Home and pick up the people in Acres Home, so the people in Acres Home wouldn't have to catch a cab to go to the bus station to catch the bus to go downtown. And this is some history, y'all. And I enjoy bringing you guys this history, because this is history that even the people at the television station don't even know. And it ain't their fault. You know, they go to school to be a journalism, and they only report what they going out there to do. And due to the fact that these television stations don't have a whole lot of time to give you the history on the city that you live in, God chose me to do it. And I see why, because I know the city. I know the history of the city. I watched the city grow. I watched the city grow. I wasn't around to watch when the city annexed Independent Heights and Studewood, and Trinity Garden, Cashmere Garden, and City Gas. I wasn't around then because that was in the early 40s. But in 56, I was around to watch them go through the annex in Sunnyside. Because see, Sunnyside only went to Holmes Road. Only street that went through Sunnyside was Cullen. And it wasn't called Cullen, it was called Old Chocolate Bayou Road. But we out here in Acres Home, y'all, what history is. Because here it is, going on 55 years later. This little village is no longer a village. It's annexed into Houston. And oh, how grateful we are to have that annexed into Houston. Because our mayor is the first black mayor from Houston. We only had 2 black mayors, and that's Lee Brown and our current mayor right now, who I'm so proud of. That's why I love coming out here to Acres Home, to show him how much I love Acres Home. And that's Sylvester Turner. Lee Brown is not from Houston. We got Lee Brown, when I say we, Houston got Lee Brown, which was Mickey Leland, Kathy Whitmire, Zolly Skills, and along with some other black leaders, Dr. Coleman, Mr. McHannon. All of these people helped Kathy Whitmire go out to get Lee Brown from Atlanta, Georgia. And Lee Brown was the first black mayor, but he wasn't the first black mayor from the city of Houston. The same way we recognize Mr. Troy Fenner. He is the first black HPD chief that we had from Houston. Like I said, Lee Brown did not come from Houston. He came from Atlanta. Lee Brown was the first black police chief. But Troy Fenner is the first black police chief from Houston, a native Houstonian. Just like Sylvester Turner is a native Houstonian. And I am so proud to live to see this happen, man. Something I thought would never happen. A president being black, and a mayor from Houston, and a police chief black from Houston. God is good. When I tell you he's good, he is good. And I'm so proud to be out here in Acres Home. The fofo. Our mayor say the fofo. And the fofo is fo-fo. That's what Acres Home is about. Fo-fo. I love Acres Home, y'all. And like I said, one thing about Acres Home, it always been a black community. And Acres Home did not sell lots. They sold acres. That's where they got the name Acres Home. Because you can buy acres to build your house. The only thing you had to do is buy your well and be able to have your enough kerosene lamp and have your tank to hold your kerosene, because you didn't have no HL&P, you didn't have no light company, you didn't have no center point. No, but for lights, they use kerosene lights. And for stove, they did not have no gas, they did not have Intex out here. They used wood to burn on their stove. They use wood to cook. They use wood to stay warm. And out here in Acres Home, they had plenty of trees out here. And they had people out here that sold wood. And people out here sold wood out here in Acres Home, man, they made $1 million. They were living high on the hog, baby. Yeah, when they say living high on the hog, that means you eating ham. Most black folks used to, back in the day, eating pork. They would always use pork bone, but when you eat ham, baby, you eat nothing but the meat, baby. So that's how Acres Home was one of the richest black community in the city of Houston. And in fact, Acres Home was one of the richest black community in the United States before Houston annexed it. And like I say, I'm so proud to be out here to recognize our mayor. I'm almost got tears in my eyes, man, when I hear him talk about his mother. Used to catch the bus out here and to go out to downtown to work at the Rice Hotel. And y'all, Rice Hotel did not like black. They did not, I don't say they didn't like black. Put it this way, the Jim Crow law stated they couldn't let blacks stay in that Rice Hotel. And they say, well, then what really happened? What really happened was there was Muhammad Ali who really helped integrate that Rice Hotel downtown. Because Muhammad Ali came down here and they would not let him stay at the Sheraton at the Sheraton Hotel, which was the Sheraton Lincoln that was down over there on the other side of the medical center. That was for whites. Nor could he stay at the Rice Hotel, which was downtown. And when he got on national TV and showed the racism of the people in Houston, they felt so embarrassed, they let him stay. That was just Muhammad Ali. Was the only one that I knew that stayed at the Rice Hotel. That was black. And here in Sylvester, Turner, our mayor, talk about his mother. He used to catch the bus. Oh man, I'm almost crying, man. I'm sorry, y'all. I got a little emotion. Because I think about my mother. And his mother used to catch the bus. Same old Acres Home bus. More than likely had to catch a cab to go to the bus station and catch the bus there. And one thing about she didn't have to transfer. That's the good part about it. Because once she got off the bus on Marlin and Texas, she was right there in 3 or 4 blocks from the Rice Hotel where she worked at. And she survived and gave food to our mayor that we got today, Mr. Sylvester Turner. I love him. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud to be a Houstonian and so proud to be able to make this video, you guys. And I'm gonna close out with this. 4-4. That's why I am. I'm in the 4-4. AKA 4-4. The home of Acres Home, where you had to buy. You didn't have to buy. That was the only way they sold things out here. And it was cheap. It was almost 10 times as cheap as it was living out in 3rd Ward. That's how cheap it was. It was cheaper than living in City Gas. It was cheaper living in Sunnyside. It was cheaper living anywhere outside of Houston in the black community. That's why they sold acres out here. And people out here bought acres to build their new home. And trust me, their homes was not like 3rd Ward and 5th Ward, where white folks had used the home before they did. No, these black people had their own home. These black people was in their new home. People today might call it a shack, but back then, it was their home. They wasn't renting from nobody. And the good part about it, they had it built themselves. Most of them built the home by themselves, for themselves. That's just how much unity that the blacks had out here in Acres Home. Better known as the 4-4. Love you guys, I'm out of here.